Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comics, and I'll let you know what I thought about them, and we always start with the pick of the week. This week's pick of the week: Junkyard Joe, issue number 3 from Image Comics, written by Geoff Johns with artwork by Gary Frank, coloring by Brad Anderson, and lettering by Rob Lee. This book has been blowing me away. It's only been around for 3 issues, obviously, but each issue has been filled with emotional nuance and an exciting concept. So Junkyard Joe is a story about a cyborg, a robot, who wound up going into war. I think it was maybe the Vietnam War or something like that, right? And he winds up helping out a platoon of soldiers. I don't know if that's the right term. If I'm wrong, let me know. But he helps out a group of soldiers, and in the first issue, they lay all that groundwork. And in the second issue, one of those soldiers has become a cartoonist who is most popular for doing a strip called Junkyard Joe, which is based on this robotic hero that he had from his war experience. Now he's an older man, his wife has recently passed away, and he's retiring from cartooning. So he's kind of lonely and sad, right? And then Junkyard Joe shows back up into his life. In the midst of all of this, we got a brand new family moving across the country after the death of the mother. The father takes the kids there, and they all try to start a new life, and they're having a rough time at it, right? So you got these different stories going on, but the way it's all connected, and the way it's connected emotionally, it's a story about isolation, it's a story about trauma, it's a story about having to learn to come together to get over those kind of things, right? I'm telling you this, Junkyard Joe has no, expression on his face. He's just a robot with no expression, right? And he doesn't speak. So the way that this book, the way that Johns and Frank and company can get so much emotional weight through the story, it blows me away. It blows me away. I cannot believe it. This is meticulously crafted. It's inherently, I don't know the word I'm trying to say. It's inherently something that exists within all of us. That seemed weird. Junkyard Joe is awesome. A superhero universe that's been set up by Geoff Johns, Gary Frank, and others. There's going to be more. And as much as I loved Geiger, Junkyard Joe is incredibly impressing me with how they can do so much with so little. But don't think for a fact that there's anything little about this story. It is really solid, and it's got some heart to it. Junkyard Joe, the pick of the week again. Then we got Kroma, issue number 2, extra size from Lorenzo Del Felice. Love this book, love the artwork, love the coloring. The basic idea is this: there are these monsters that exist in the world, and humanity, or this group of whatever, I don't know if this is on Earth or whatever, some fantasy world, right? But they have discovered that the way to avoid conflict with these monsters is to basically take all the color out of their lives. So they have since, through, breeding, they're basically albinos, they have white skin, they have all white and gray clothes and stuff, but the outside world is still very colorful, and colors have become something feared by the humans. Then you got this one young girl who shows up, who has 2 different colored eyes, and there are people within the village or the community that want to save her, and there are people that want to stop her. And she winds up outside exploring this new colorful world, but it, of course, is filled with dangers too. A really great story, a greatly paced script, and the artwork is phenomenal. Lorenzo Del Felice is doing a fantastic job there. I Hate Fairyland, issue number 2, Spawn cover. Scotty Young, it's John Francois Ballou on the coloring, but it's Brett Bean on the artwork. I am having a lot of fun with this book. Now, the original I Hate Fairyland, and this is a sequel of sorts to that, but even if you haven't read that, I think you can jump in here because they do catch you up. There are some Easter eggs and stuff like that to some of the events that happened in the previous series, but I only read that series for a few issues, and I dropped out, and I'm actually loving this. 2 issues in, I'm enjoying it more than the first I Hate Fairyland, but basically the premise is this. the character from I Hate Fairyland, she has left Fairyland, she has grown up, but she is being tasked with going back there now, and they explain who is this organization, who is this dude, and it's done in such a fun, tongue-in-cheek and cheesy way that I have a lot of fun with this book. So 2 issues in, I'm liking I Hate Fairyland. Hitomi is here with issue number 3. It is about a samurai, or a ronin, I should say, who is tasked with training this young woman. Now, this young woman's family were killed by a ronin, and if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure the dude who's training her is the dude who killed them. I don't know if I need to go back and reread issue number 1, but each issue has been a self-contained, kind of like samurai tale. This one is really solid. They go to a village. They are tasked by the villagers to help out. There are murders that happen on this road, but only to men. There's a lot more behind that. There's a lot of supernatural stuff, and there's a lot of interesting things that are being done and juxtapositioned with the characters and the story together. I thought this was a really great issue, and the best issue of Hitomi yet. That has been strengthening. Didn't get a Spawn cover on that one. Then we got Vanish here with issue number 4. Vanish, of course, with the Spawn cover. That's a great Spawn cover by Ryan Stegman right there. Anyway, this book's starting to lose me. So it's Donny Cates. It's Ryan Stegman. It's J.P. Mayer. It's all right. So it's about this world populated by this superheroic team, but the superheroes are actually these demons. So this dude has to go out and he's actually trying to stop these demons, but everybody in the world and think he's the bad guy. And there's a lot of stuff thrown in here, and it does kind of have that very extreme 90s kind of image vibe to it, and I appreciate that, but I'm finding it very difficult to latch on to anything with the story or with the characters. A lot of it seems like been there, done that. A lot of it seems like don't really care for that. So it's kind of losing me right now. It's decent. The art is great. It's dynamic. But there's just nothing in the core of this story that's making me want to continue to read it. And that's kind of upsetting because I was really looking forward to that book. Then we have Scorched. What was I trying to say? Scorched number 13. This is written by Sean Lewis and Todd McFarlane with artwork by Steven Segovia and Von Randall. And Von Randall is going to be seen in some upcoming Spawn books, and I'm very excited for it. So I loved the artwork. The basic premise of this one is that She-Spawn, Jessica, sends her team to go and pick up information on the Mandarin spawn. So you get a spotlight on the Mandarin spawn. Another piece gets put into this awesome puzzle that has been Scorched, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. Scorched number 13 out this week. Then we got Gunslinger Spawn number 15 out this week. Loving this book. Really solidified itself as one of the better Spawn books out right now. I'm enjoying all 4 of them, but to me, Gunslinger and King Spawn are taking the cakes home all the way. Anyway, Brett Booth's penciling is awesome. He's got 3 inkers here, but it actually still feels very consistent. My only gripe about the art on this book is the colors seem a little washed out, maybe a little too pastel-y at times, and I would like a little bit more of a darker approach, but I don't know, maybe some more like spotting of blacks. There are moments where it works for me, and maybe just a darker approach visually, but outside of that, I'm having fun. It's about Gunslinger Spawn, and he's on this mission of vengeance, right? We get introduced to new pieces of his puzzle, we get introduced to some new threats to his puzzle, and I'm really enjoying Gunslinger Spawn. Over at DC, we've got Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths, issue number 7. This is the final issue. It is the dawn of the DCU. Here's what I'll say about this. I am a sucker for crisis events. I have enjoyed this book all the way through, but it never felt like it hit that grandiose scope that I associate with crisis events. Now, not every crisis event has truly hit that genuine scope for me. In fact, for me, it's the original, it's Infinite Crisis, and it's Final Crisis, and Death Metal. Death Metal for sure. Not Metal. Metal's cool, but Death Metal was super epic feeling to me. And this almost feels like the end result of this was kind of what was set up by the end result of Death Metal, so it just seems a little weird and shaky as far as that goes. But the story itself being a focus mostly... If this wasn't a crisis in name, I think it would be lauded a little bit more from people this year because it is, at its heart, a story about legacy in the DC Universe, and that starts with Dick Grayson, so it is a crisis through him. Deathstroke is there as this opposing force. This is basically like a Teen Titans type of crisis. People that loved the George Perez, Marv Wolfman Teen Titans, and they love Dick Grayson. This is a book that has a lot of heart to it, has a lot to say about legacy in the DC universe and in the real world, but just as a crisis event, never quite reached that level to me. And then some of the stuff that's set up here at the end seems okay. Like the post-credits, I guess you call it. I guess they're okay. I don't know. It was all right, though. It was a good, solid ending. But as a crisis event, it was a little lackluster overall. Then we got Batman, Superman, World's Finest, issue number 10. It's my favorite issue of this one yet. It blew me away. I loved it. So we got this boy Thunder kid. He's from another reality, a parallel universe. Superman's kind of taken him under his wing. He's trying to teach him, but he's having a difficult time trying to contain his anger, right? Because he's just lost everything that he knows, and he's not Superman. You know, he's not Kal-El. He's got his issues, and he finds it hard to contain it, and it makes it even more difficult when he gets kidnapped by the Keymaster and the Joker. And Dan Mora's artwork in here is absolutely amazing. I love seeing a Superman who is very angry as well. And they also make a mention here, Mark Waid does, of make a mention of the idea that Superman doesn't know how to control anger because he doesn't get angry very much. So when he does get angry, it's very scary. So I liked that. Loved the artwork by Dan Mora, Tamara Bonvillain. And the ending of this one, I thought that was awesome. That was like the fanboy reawakened inside of me, and I got so freaking hyped for that ending. Then we got Batman vs. Robin, issue number 4. This is the final issue of this series for now. It will be returning in February. Until then, we got all this Lazarus Planet stuff. Now, we just wrapped up one event. Why not go right into another? Sure, DC, let's try it. However, I do like the setup for this event. Something has happened to magically contaminate the Lazarus pits, and they are now they're going to be intermingled with the Earth's atmosphere, so you're going to start seeing freaky, magical Lazarus changes and a bunch of people and stuff, right? So this did a decent job of setting up what Lazarus Planet is and the stakes and making it feel a bit epic in scale. As far as an ending for Batman vs. Robin Arc 1, didn't quite work, but the whole point of this story was to do that. And some of the, actually, I would say the best stuff in here was probably in issue 2 and 3. Still liked it. Good setup for Lazarus Planet, but it just kind of felt like that's all it was. Then we got Nightwing here with issue number 99. Bruno Redondo does a great job here. Even though a couple pages are done by a different artist, it does have a tone and a consistency because of the artwork. The coloring, especially by Felipe, is really, really solid. I like the story enough. The dude who murdered Dick's parents comes back into town. He's trying to claim the mayor as his daughter. She is trying to find a new identity for herself. It was a nice, fun, little kind of almost self-contained Nightwing story. Could have been a little bit more epic, could have built up a little bit more, but I have faith in this book. I've liked this book. It's one of DC's best ongoings right now, so I'm enjoying it, and I'm excited to see what's going to develop. This was a solid issue. Then we got Stargirl, The Lost Children, issue number 2. This is Jeff Johns, Todd Knock. If you're a Stargirl fan, whether it's the show, whether it's the old school books when she was in JSA or when she had her book Stars and Stripes, which I loved that stuff by Jeff Johns, this is a book for you. It's really cool. And if you like the golden age of DC characters, and especially that sidekick, the more like less known stuff, you know, and that's what like Jeff Johns would always mine in the JSA run that he did, even in Stars and Stripes. So I really appreciate that. There are new concepts and characters, old concepts and characters, and forgotten concepts and characters, and the way that it's being worked together with the current modern day story with Courtney. And now we got Red Arrow here, a little bit of her past, her relationship with Ollie kind of explained. Some really cool stuff and nice classic superhero art from Todd Knock. Then we've got DC's War of the Undead Gods, issue number 5. This takes the book to another level. I have enjoyed Deceased all the way through, and War of the Undead Gods is basically Darkseid and the New Gods. They're going planet to planet across the universe, contaminating, infecting everybody with the anti-life equation. There is something bigger than that, though, and then another thing that develops here, where the DC heroes try to get the help from an unlikely source, and that unlikely source, something happens to that, and I loved it. I thought it was great. So Deceased was really solid this week. The Flash issue 789 was okay. I really liked the setup on what Jeremy Adams was doing on the last issue, where the former warden of Iron Heights is now the mayor of Central City. He has deputized the rogues, and he's put the city on like martial law, right? So I was really looking forward to like maybe a good solid arc of this, like 4, 5, 6 issues. Instead, it gets wrapped up here, and wrapped up very fast, in my opinion, and in kind of a dumb way. This has been a rare issue of Flash that hasn't worked for me. I mean, I get it. I think it's okay. But I just felt like this story deserved a little bit more room to grow. And it didn't. I didn't like the twist and the way that it all wrapped up. Felt kind of silly to me. So I don't know. Then we got GCPD, the Blue Wall, issue number 3. Fresh out of the academy, 3 new police officers. They all have different jobs. They're all dealing with different things. So we're experiencing that. There's a big focus on Renee Montoya as the commissioner. She thinks Two-Face is behind a plot. She's letting that kind of blind her to the actual facts. She's kind of becoming obsessed with going after Two-Face. I love the references to the Greg Rucka work that he did in the Gotham Central book. And this does make a good kind of successor to Gotham Central. This has been one of the only police Gotham-centric books that I've enjoyed since Gotham Central. I thought this was really solid. John Ridley does a great job of writing the script. It's incredibly well written, and Stefano Raphael is doing a great job illustrating it. Let's jump over to Marvel. And from Marvel, we have Mary Jane and Black Cat #1, part of the Dark Web spin-off series of books, right? So this is a mini-series written by Jed MacKay, focusing on Black Cat and Mary Jane teaming up during the events of Dark Web. And it does do a good job of kind of... So far, the tie-ins for Dark Web have been doing a great job of, like, interconnecting everything in a really interesting, fun way that would... Like, when it gets put together in a reading order, like in an omnibus or something like that, if it keeps up this, that was pretty cool. But if you are a fan of Jed MacKay's Black Cat work, this is the next step in that, right? It is unfortunate that Jed MacKay's doing amazing work with the character of Felicia Hardy, but his books keep getting cut short, turned into miniseries, so he just got this stop, start type thing, because this is a book that I think, if this would have been just labeled, for instance, issue, I don't know, 40, 50, or whatever it would have been of Black Cat, I think that this book could garner an audience and build an audience, but instead it just kind of keeps losing audiences who maybe not realize that this is the next step. And it, of course, does have a lot of focus on Mary Jane, some interesting revelations about Mary Jane here that I think Amazing Spider-Man fans are going to want to check out. But I like their banter. I like the way they work together. There's also a really kind of silly story in the back, like a backup story where Black Cat steals Doom's face mask, but it was just fun and it was cute or whatever. But I enjoyed this book. I thought it was cool. Not essential to your understanding of Dark Web, but there's some things in here for Amazing Spider-Man fans that you might want to know about some of them characters. Then we got Dark Web, Miss Marvel, issue number 1. This is going to be a 3-issue series, I believe. It was just alright. This is the next step of Miss Marvel. They've done the same thing to Kamala Khan that they've been doing with Black Cat, which has not allowed the book to just continue on a run and allow it to grow and maybe build an audience or just solidify an audience. Instead, they just kind of give it all these little mini-series and stuff like that. And whenever there's a new event that comes around, it's got to have a tie-in mini-series. It's kind of what they used to do with Runaways and Young Avengers back in the aughts, right? But Dark Web, Miss Marvel, not essential to your understanding of Dark Web at all, but if you do like the character of Kamala Khan and you like the Miss Marvel book, this is your next step. This reads definitely more like a Miss Marvel book. It does have that connection to Dark Web. It does play around with some scenes that we've already seen that lead into this, so I thought that was fine. It's decent enough, but it wasn't as good as the Mary Jane Black Cat one for me. Then we have Gold Goblin, issue number 2. This is a Dark Web tie-in as well. This is a book focusing in on Norman Osborn and his new identity as the Gold Goblin. Norman's trying to be a good guy. And in this one, he finds out about Queen Goblin and how she was created from the sins that were taken from him. So as he's trying to move on from his horrible legacy and forge a new heroic path, he's confronted with the personification of the evil past, right? So it's got some interesting things being played with, but the execution's just not quite there for me. Christopher Cantwell, though, this is one of the better Marvel works that I've read from him. It's not super exciting, but it does have some interesting explorations on Norman, but at the same time, it does kind of just kind of tread the same ground a few times in circles. Then we got Spider-Man The Lost Hunt, issue number 2. J.M. DeMatteis going back to the 90s. You remember when Ben Reilly became Spider-Man, Peter Parker lost his powers, he moved to the Pacific Northwest. You remember that era? This is another book focusing in on that. And after the death of Kraven and the death of Kraven's son, this dude, who I can't remember his name, Gregor, is after Spider-Man, and Spider-Man is powerless. He's freaking out. He's been poisoned by this dude. It's got some interesting stuff set up at the end. If you like that era of Spider-Man, if you like the J.M. DeMatteis work that he does, spinning out of Death of, or Kraven's Last Hunt, and he's gone back to that well a few times, but each time it's pretty cool. So this was an alright kind of throwback book. It's not going to change your life, but it's pretty solid. Then we got Namor the Submariner, issue number 3, Conquered Shores, issue number 3. This is set in a future world in which the oceans have risen, the Kree have destroyed the atmosphere on Earth, a lot of heroes have died, and a lot of the other heroes have left Earth and they've never came back. They're presumed dead. So Atlantis and Namor have been trying to help some of these people. So there's 2 books right now written by Chris Cantwell about Marvel villains trying to overcome that horrific legacy. So this one works a lot more for me. Pascal Ferry's artwork really helps that, though. But I like the stuff that's being explored here. And this one, he's questioning his complicated relationship with Victor Von Doom, and that's being expressed and talked about. This isn't the best issue of the series. I do feel like it loses a little bit of its momentum, but I'm still into it. Then from Boom Studios, we got Something is Killing the Children, issue number 27. This is a book that has been waning on me a little bit, but this one kind of piqued my interest right back up into it, right? Like, we got some interesting concepts now being played around here. A different way, a way to differentiate this arc from the previous arc and not just basically tell the same story but in another town. And it kind of felt at first like we were just kind of telling or retelling the first 20 issues of Something is Killing the Children, but in a new town with a new kid, right? But Erica's still there, and now she's being hunted by the House of Slaughter, right? But there's more to it than that. There's some interesting concepts. There's some interesting ideas. And at the end here, I was very excited to see how James Tynion and company are going to develop that out. Then we got BRZRKR, issue number 11. This is the penultimate issue of BRZRKR. We will not get the double-sized finale until March of next year. Holy cow. That's unfortunate, because one of the things that I liked this issue, it was a very quick read. Because each issue is so quick, yet it takes so long sometimes for the issues to come out. Even me, y'all, I have lost myself in the story. I forget exactly how we got to this point, but I'm understanding what's going on. It's not boring, but it's such a quick read, it's quickly forgotten about when the next issue doesn't come out for 2, 3, or 4 months. That being said, BRZRKR number 11 was pretty cool. Maybe some of the more frantic artwork of the series, but I guess we're hitting that deadline crunch, right? Then we got Traveling to Mars, issue number 2 from Ablaze, written by Mark Russell, with artwork by Roberto Mili. I really like this. This is a really nice kind of introspective kind of book. It's about this dude who's just kind of a loser, right? He divorced his wife 20 years ago. She hates him. He doesn't have a good relationship with his family. He's got a job he hates. He hasn't done much with his life. Finds out he's got terminal cancer. Because of that, this company has picked him because apparently there's this thing going on. Whoever's first to land on Mars, they're going to lay claim to it, corporate-wise speaking. And a corporation picks him, and he's off on his way to Mars. So you think that this would be about him exploring Mars and all this kind of stuff, but it's not. It's about him exploring his life. And this is a very introspective issue that I really like. Not exciting, not a lot of stuff happening, not a lot of stuff moving that plot forward. It's just a really good look at the sad life of this dude when he has time to think about it. I really like this book. I was really shocked. Then we got Dead Seas, issue number 1. It's one of those new IDW originals. This one's by Cavan Scott, Nick Brokenshire, and it's all right. It's decent, I guess. In this world, there's an event one day, and the dead come back. So ghosts walk the earth, right? And I guess they got their own Ghostbusters because they captured these ghosts and they trapped them in these containment chambers. So they put them on this big ship out in the ocean, and they send these prisoners there to basically work off some of their sentence. And what their job is to vacuum up all the ectoplasm, because you can do things medicinally with ectoplasm. I don't know. Medicinal ectoplasm sounds good to me. That's going to be legal in California soon. But Dead Seas issue number 1 never quite went beyond just the interesting concept. It never hooked me in with any interesting characters. It's a cool concept, right? But it just didn't quite work for me. So maybe I'll read a second issue and see if the story picks up some momentum or if it does build up some character stuff. But for me, Dead Seas is a interesting concept, but the execution was just kind of alright. True Cult is here with issue number 5. This is the final issue of True Cult. I like this. It's about a dude who works at a Christian-themed burger joint called Burger Lord, and he decides, I've had enough, I'm going to become a master thief or whatever, but he goes and robs the strip mall next to them. That was the first issue, and that was great. Then it devolves into him being caught by the satanic cult. This book got really wonky and wild and ridiculous the further it went along. I like this ending. I think this book has a lot of charm to it. Anybody who's ever had one of those shitty kind of jobs, you're going to have a lot to engage with and relate to in this book. And I love what Liana Kangas does on the artwork. There's some shortcuts here and there, but overall I think it's solid work. Not as solid as her work on Know Your Station, though. Anyway, True Cult, issue number 5, a satisfying conclusion to a pretty fun book. Then we got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Saturday Morning Adventures, issue number 3, a Casey Jones-focused throwback to the old school Archie series, a throwback to the old school 80s, early 90s animated series. If you like that era of Turtles, and if you like Turtles, you probably really do like that era, especially if you're around my age. This is an awesome book. Eric Burnham does a great job of capturing those voices and capturing that timeless feel from that time. So I guess it's not timeless if it feels nostalgic. Nostalgia is timeless. From Scout Comics, we got a few, but I read 2 this week. I got Ghost Planet, issue number 1. This is a self-contained one-shot story. It's interesting, but it's kind of oddly paced. It's a little clunky here and there, and it just didn't quite punch it in at the end for me. But it's about a family who the mother has recently died. Her lifelong ambition was to find this planet to help humanity out or something. They go to this planet and freaky stuff starts happening to them. And we've seen this story done tons of times. This has got some interesting bits. It's even got some interesting moments and interesting art to accentuate those moments, but a lot of it just kind of falls a little flat, I should say. Then we got Darkland, issue number 1. This is from Scout. This one's all right. It's a $6 comic, so I can't really necessarily recommend it, but I did like it, but it took me the whole read to really like it. By the end, I thought it was cool. It's about this woman. She is tasked with finding this small child, and I don't think she's a small child. I think she's like a teenager or maybe early 20s. I can't really tell. Anyway, she's tasked with finding this person and taking her out. We don't know why. And then there's this other element. It's got some nice, cool artwork to it that has a lot of dynamism to it. So it was all right. It was decent. If issue 2 comes out on a slow week, I might check it out. And then Sergio Aragonés is back with Gru, Gods Against Gru. So this is the third part of a trilogy that started with Fray of the Gods and then Play of the Gods, and this is Gods Against Gru. I haven't read the second one. I did read the first one, but that came out so long ago. I don't know how we got to where we are, but I loved it nonetheless. Gru is a fantastic comic book. If you've never read it, I wouldn't say that this would be your best place to start. I would recommend at least starting with Fray of the Gods or with the Gru meets Tarzan that came out not too long ago. They did a Conan one. Or any Gru you can get a hold of. But we need a good, solid paperback and hardcover in order collections of the Gru library. That's what we need. Because you expect us all to have to go and hunt all those down issues by issues. Those wound up in so many dollar bins over the last 20, 30 years. Come on. Anyway. That's what I read. That's what I thought. So, to recap, Gru is awesome. If it's your first Gru comic, I wouldn't start here, but I still liked it. Darkland showed some promise. Ghost Planet showed a little bit of promise, but it didn't execute it. TMNT, Saturday Morning Adventures for fans of that old school stuff. True Cult, a satisfying conclusion. Dead Seas, a non-satisfying start. Traveling to Mars, very nuanced, introspective. I really liked that. Kind of sad, though. BRZRKR. Did someone just say making fuck? Something is Killing the Children, starting to win me back there with that issue. Namor the Submariner, the weakest of the issues so far, but still liking the concepts here. Spider-Man the Lost Hunt was decent. Then we got Gold Goblin, it was decent. Namor's a better Cantwell exploration on a villain trying to forget their past or something, move beyond it. Dark Web, Miss Marvel, it's all right. Miss Marvel fans definitely want to check it out. Mary Jane and Black Cat fans, that's your next step right there. GCPD, The Blue Wall, this is incredibly well written. The Flash, it was all right, a little bit of a rushed, silly ending. DC's levels up yet again. Then we got Stargirl, The Lost Children, really like that book. Nightwing, really liking that book. Batman vs. Robin, a decent enough setup to Lazarus Planet, but I don't know, at the same time, something, just kind of, I don't know, there was something missing, it felt like. Batman Superman World's Finest, jaw dropper. Dark Crisis number 7, a good, slow, personal, legacy-focused book. As a crisis, though, it's all right. Gunslinger Spawn continues to be fun. So does Scorched, and y'all, we got some David Mack covers coming. Vanish is starting to vanish as far as my interest goes. Need to workshop that one. Hitomi, best issue yet. I hate Fairyland, having a lot of fun with it. Kroma continues to deliver, but Junkyard Joe continues to deliver exceptionally well. I don't know how they do it, but they do it. Anyway, what are you reading? What are you digging? What are you thinking? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And join us over at patreon.com/PCP if you want to help support the channel. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for checking out the video. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Station. Pop, pop, boom.